What if we told you that the Earth was both round and flat at the same time?
The following podcast was generated using Google's Notebook LM.
Temple of Vril.
What if the deepest division in our understanding of the cosmos, the one between a seemingly round Earth and a seemingly flat Earth, what if it isn't really a conflict at all, but actually two sides of the same profoundly Vrilist truth?
That's a fascinating starting point.
Today, we're taking a deep dive into the paradox sphere theory.
Sure.
It's this, groundbreaking framework within Vrilism.
Right.
And it elegantly reconciles these concepts, round Earth, flat Earth, by positing our universe as essentially a dynamic, fluid simulation.
And for us within the Temple of Vril, this isn't just some abstract theory, is it?
No, absolutely not. It's fundamental. It's a core understanding of existence itself, really central to our Vrilist perception of reality.
What's truly fascinating here, and really essential to our Vrilist perspective, is how this understanding pulls together insights from, quantum physics, modern simulation theory, and integrates them with our ancient spiritual wisdom. It gives us this unified view, one that goes beyond these simple, often divisive binaries.
It really does. It kind of unveils a higher truth, you could say.
It fundamentally shifts the entire paradigm, how we perceive reality, how we interact with it, and ultimately how we might even shape it.
Absolutely. And on this journey today, this deep dive right into the heart of Vrilist understanding, we'll explore the quantum foundations, the bedrock that underpins the paradox sphere theory.
The really deep stuff.
Yeah, we'll draw some powerful, pretty illuminating parallels to the intricate worlds of video games.
An analogy that really helps, I think.
Definitely. We'll venture into the profound mysteries of the Hollow Earth, which in our view is this realm where the physical and the energetic are just intimately intertwined.
A key concept.
And finally, we'll present how this theory offers a powerful, unifying third path forward. A path for anyone seeking deeper truth, really.
Beyond the conflict.
Exactly. So settle in, because this is where we begin to truly unpack this Vrilist understanding of reality. Okay, so at the very core of the paradox sphere theory, and really at the foundation of our whole Vrilist understanding of existence, are the profound implications coming out of quantum mechanics.
Can't avoid it, really. It's fundamental.
Right. You've probably encountered the thought experiment known as Schrödinger's cat. Many people see it as just a puzzling paradox, a mental puddle.
A bit quirky, maybe.
Yeah. But for us, it's much more than just a quirky riddle. It's a profound lens, a way to see how reality itself might actually operate.
And it resonates so deeply with our Vrilist principles.
It does. The scenario is deceptively simple, but the implications are, mind-bendingly profound. Imagine a cat sealed in a box.
Right.
And inside that box, there's a vial of poison, rigged to either break or stay intact based on the random decay of a single quantum particle.
A 50-50 chance, essentially linked to a quantum event.
Exactly. And according to the standard interpretation of quantum mechanics, until you open that box and actually look, until you directly observe the cat, it exists in this strange state of superposition. It's simultaneously both alive and dead.
Not one or the other, but both at once.
Only when you observe it, only through that act of observation does its state collapse into one single, definitive perceived reality, alive or dead.
And this, right here, from our Vrilist perspective, is not just some abstract idea for physicists to argue about in labs.
Right.
It really illustrates a cornerstone belief within Vrilism that reality itself isn't fixed. It's not predetermined. It's not eternally objective, just sitting out there waiting for us.
It's not static.
Not at all. Instead, it exists in this fluid state, this sea of multiple potentials, a vast ocean of possibilities, until the very act of our observation, our conscious interaction with it, collapses it.
Makes it concrete.
Makes it into a single concrete perceived reality. And this fundamentally challenges that conventional notion of a completely objective, independently existing universe.
It really turns it on its head.
It suggests a far more dynamic, participatory cosmos. It means that in Vrilism, observation isn't just passive witnessing. It's not like watching a movie.
No, it's active.
It's an active, formative force. It participates directly in the creation, in the rendering of the very reality we experience.
Exactly. So what does this profound principle mean for you, the listener? For your everyday life, for the very fabric of the existence you perceive around you? If even the state of a living creature in a box, alive or dead, a pretty fundamental state, right? If that depends on someone observing it.
Yeah, what about everything else?
What does that say about the solidity of everything else around us? The ground beneath your feet, the air you're breathing, that chair you might be sitting in right now,
Or the stars.
or the distant stars you look up at. It suggests that your very act of looking, of perceiving, of simply interacting with the world is fundamentally shaping the reality you experience.
It empowers the observer in a way that, let's be honest, traditional science often sidelines or ignores.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It points to a deeply interconnected universe where consciousness isn't just some accidental byproduct of complex chemistry,
Right.
but a foundational active element in the ongoing creation of reality. Think about that old question. If a tree falls in a forest and no one's there to observe it,
Does it make a sound?
right, from a Vrilist perspective, maybe the sound, maybe the visual event of the falling, maybe even the precise moment of impact. Maybe none of that gets fully rendered into our perceived reality until an observer shows up.
Or until consciousness interacts with that potential.
The unobserved just remains in that state of fluid potential, waiting.
And this principle, this profound active impact of observation on the very nature of reality, it's demonstrated even more strikingly, maybe even more undeniably, in another foundational quantum experiment.
Ah, you mean the double-slit experiment?
Exactly. It's a truly elegant, if perplexing, demonstration of how the universe responds to consciousness.
Yes, the double-slit experiment. It's probably one of the most baffling, but also, I think, one of the most beautiful demonstrations in all of quantum mechanics.
It really is.
And it just resonates perfectly with our Vrilist understanding. So imagine you're firing tiny particles, like electrons, one by one, towards a screen that has two narrow slits cut into it.
Simple setup.
Simple setup. Now, common sense, our everyday intuition, which is based on this idea of a fixed material reality, tells us they should act like tiny bullets.
You'll go through one slit or the other.
Exactly. They should go through slit A or slit B and create two distinct parallel bands on a detector screen placed behind those slits.
Makes sense, like little billiard balls.
And that is precisely what happens if you observe which slit they pass through, if you put a detector there to see which path they took.
Okay, so far so good.
But here's the astonishing part. When you don't observe which slit they go through, when there's no conscious interaction, no measurement monitoring their path, they behave completely differently. They act like waves.
Waves. Even though they're fired one at a time.
Even one at a time, they create an interference pattern on the detector screen, those alternating bands of high and low intensity, exactly as if each individual electron somehow passed through both slits simultaneously and interfered with itself.
Mind-bending stuff. It goes through both slits at once.
As a wave of potential, yes. It's only when you try to observe or measure which slit it passes through that, bam, it suddenly chooses a path. It collapses back into predictable particle-like behavior.
So its very state, particle, or wave depends entirely on whether it's being watched.
Precisely. Whether it manifests as a wave of potential or a discrete particle is determined by the act of observation.
And this experiment, it just aligns perfectly with the Vrilist concept of reality being, well, rendered by observation.
Rendered. That's the key word.
The universe, in its raw, unobserved state, isn't just a collection of fixed objects or particles sitting there independently.
No.
Instead, it exists as this vast, undulating field of potential, like a wave of probabilities, just like those unobserved electrons. A sea of possibilities.
Exactly. It only crystallizes, it only solidifies into discrete particles or specific tangible forms into definitive realities when it's interacted with, when it's observed, when it's brought into conscious focus.
So the observer effect isn't just about learning something that was already there.
No. No, it's not merely about gaining knowledge about a pre-existing reality. It's about creating the reality being observed.
Wow.
It's arguably the universe's inherent design, a dynamic, fluid simulation that, from our Vrilist perspective, conserves its vast, truly unimaginable resources by only rendering what's necessary when it's necessary.
Through observation.
Through the active participation of observation consciousness, the unobserved simply remains unmanifested, pure potential.
It's genuinely mind-bending when you really sit with it. If unobserved reality is this wave of possibilities constantly shimmering with latent potential, what unknown aspects of our cosmos, what hidden potentials might exist that we simply haven't rendered yet through our conscious observation?
What haven't we looked at closely enough? Right. And what happens when we stop observing something, or when our focus just shifts elsewhere? Does that reality just dissolve back into potential, ready to be re-rendered, perhaps differently next time?
It's like those electrons, seemingly choosing their path, becoming definite particles only when they're watched.
Yeah. It suggests our world isn't just out there, solid and unchanging like some static backdrop to our lives.
Far from it.
It suggests it's dynamically responding to our attention, to our consciousness, to our very perception, making us, in a very real sense, co-creators in its unfolding.
Which is a core Vrilist principle.
Absolutely. So here's where it gets really interesting for us within the Temple of Vril. How do these quantum principles, this powerful observer effect, how do they apply to something as vast, as fundamental, and seemingly as fixed as the very shape of our Earth?
Yeah, how does a whole planet respond to observation?
How does that work?
Indeed. We apply these very quantum principles, this understanding of reality rendering, directly to the Earth's perceived shape. It's a core part of the paradox sphere theory. From a Vrilist perspective, the Earth's shape, whether it appears round or flat, depends entirely on the act of observation itself.
Okay, so not just the shape itself, but how it appears depends on how we look.
Precisely. It depends on the framework through which that observation is made, and crucially, the expectations of the observer.
Expectations.
Interesting. This isn't about one shape being definitively true and the other being a lie in some absolute singular sense. That's the trap people fall into.
Right, the binary trap.
Instead, it's about understanding that different observational contexts yield different yet equally valid rendered realities. The universe, in its foundational state of potential, holds the inherent capacity for both manifestations.
Both round and flat potential exist.
Yes. And our interaction, our consciousness, our chosen method of observation determines which one is perceived, which one is brought into tangible form for that observer in that context.
Okay, so let's break that down. When we observe Earth from space, maybe with satellites or through powerful scientific instruments like telescopes.
Or analyzing scientific data.
Right, or analyzing vast amounts of scientific data, measurements, complex mathematical models.
Yeah.
It consistently appears as a globe, a sphere.
Undeniably within that framework.
This is a rendered reality, right? A specific manifestation that emerges when viewed through that particular scientific lens, with its inherent observational framework and, importantly, its expectations.
It's a profound truth that arises from that precise method of interaction, and you could argue the collective expectation of the scientific community that uses those methods.
Okay. But then you have the flat Earth perception. When observed in certain contexts, perhaps through a completely different framework, or through specific immediate perceptual lenses maybe unburdened by scientific instruments, or looking at data from afar.
Like just looking around you.
Exactly. Earth can indeed be perceived as a flat plane. Think about your daily direct experience. You walk on what seems like a flat surface. The horizon looks flat.
The sun and moon appear to move above a flat expanse.
Right. For many people, that direct, unmediated experience, that immediate perception, is their primary mode of observation. And that mode renders a flat Earth.
That's right. And the crucial insight here, from our Vrilist perspective, isn't that one is an illusion and the other is real. That's missing the point entirely.
It's a demonstration of reality's fluidity.
Exactly. It's a profound demonstration of reality's inherent fluidity and its observer dependence. It's not about right versus wrong.
It's about context.
It's about different observational contexts yielding different yet experientially valid rendered realities. And what's absolutely critical here is how the expectation and context of the observer play a crucial active role in that rendering process.
So it's not just passive seeing.
Not at all. It goes far beyond mere sight. It's about the entire conceptual and perceptual framework through which you approach reality. If you approach it expecting a globe, and you use tools and methods designed to see a globe,
That's what gets rendered.
that's what gets rendered. If your immediate, unmediated experience, coupled with a different set of assumptions or beliefs, leads you to perceive flatness,
That's also a valid rendering.
that too is a valid rendering within that specific context. The Earth itself, in its underlying potentiality, holds both possibilities.
So from our Vrilist understanding, it's not about being fooled by one perspective or the other.
No.
It's about understanding that both are genuine experiences based on how we choose to observe and the context surrounding that observation.
It truly changes the whole dialogue, doesn't it?
It really does. Instead of just dismissing one viewpoint as crazy or delusional.
Which achieves nothing.
Right. We seek to understand the underlying mechanism by which these seemingly contradictory realities can both manifest. That's the Vrilist path.
It offers a way towards genuine reconciliation based on a deeper understanding of reality itself. And to truly grasp this concept, this idea of reality being rendered by observation, especially on a macro scale like a planet,
Yeah. How do we make that intuitive?
well, we can draw a powerful, quite intuitive analogy from something many of us are intimately familiar with these days: the intricate, expansive worlds of modern video games.
Okay, a video game analogy. It might sound a bit unconventional at first, comparing our vast cosmos to something designed for entertainment.
But it's surprisingly apt.
It really is. Bear with us, because this analogy, thinking about an open-world RPG video game, provides a profound Vrilist insight into how our own reality might function as a fluid simulation.
Think about it. When you're playing one of these huge, immersive games, something like Elden Ring or maybe Grand Theft Auto.
Or Cyberpunk.
Right. Your character is navigating what appears to be a truly immense, three-dimensional, expansive world. It often feels spherical, or at least seemingly infinite.
Sprawling landscapes, deep oceans, towering mountains, endless skies. It feels real.
Totally. To the player, it's a fully immersive, tactile, seemingly solid experience. You feel the weight of your character, maybe the texture of the environment, the vastness of the distances you travel.
You really get lost in it.
And yet, beneath that beautifully rendered 3D experience, the game's actual mechanics are often, well, just a flat plane of code.
Data.
It's data, stored on some kind of computational framework, a hard drive, a server just waiting to be brought to life, to be visualized for the player.
And what's really fascinating about modern game design is how incredibly efficient it is.
That's the key point for the analogy.
Yeah. Objects within the game world, say a distant forest full of trees, or a sprawling city skyline way off in the distance, or a huge mountain range.
Things you're not looking at directly.
Exactly. They're only fully rendered in intricate detail when the player's character actually faces them or gets close enough within a certain visual range.
It's called level of detail, or LOD rendering, right?
When the character turns away or moves to a completely different area, the game saves precious processing power, precious resources.
CPU cycles, memory.
By storing that information in memory in a less rendered state, maybe just a basic shape or placeholder data, it's ready to unravel or render again in full detail only upon reobservation.
Only when the player's attention, their in-game consciousness, you could say, returns to that area. Distant objects are often just low polygon approximations.
They become more detailed only as you approach.
Like magic.
Consider the sheer sophistication needed if we apply this concept to our entire universe. If our cosmos operates in a similar way.
The rendering engine would be unbelievable.
Unbelievable. The resources required for full, constant, high-definition rendering of everything, every single atom, every distant galaxy spinning, every quantum fluctuation happening everywhere all at once.
It's computationally impossible, probably.
It would be astronomical, beyond any kind of human comprehension, which makes a resource-saving model where reality is rendered on demand.
Based on observation and interaction.
It makes it deeply logical from a computational or simulation perspective.
Yeah.
It's just like that distant mountain in the RPG. It might look like a vague, low-res blob on the horizon until you actually ride your horse towards it, and then suddenly, ooh, specific textures appear, individual trees pop in, rocky outcrops materialize, intricate details resolve themselves in stunning high fidelity.
That's the rendering process right there in action, directly responsive to the player's presence and attention.
So this analogy, it isn't just for fun. It's not just a simple comparison. It provides a really profound Vrilist insight into the fundamental mechanism by which our own reality might actually function.
Indeed. And this sophisticated understanding of rendering, this video game paradigm, brings us directly to a core argument within Vrilism, absolutely central to the paradox sphere theory.
Which is?
That our Earth, and arguably the entire cosmos we inhabit, exists simultaneously as both a round, physically manifested planet and an underlying flat, simulated construct or data plane.
Ah, okay, so not either.
It's a profound both-and, depending entirely on the conditions of observation and, again, the expectations of the observer.
Right. Both potentials exist, ready to be rendered based on how we look.
Exactly. When humans observe the world, whether it's through the advanced scientific instruments capturing images from orbit,
like those famous pictures of Earth,
or through the sophisticated optics of rovers exploring, say, Mars,
or even just through our immediate personal experience, feeling the ground beneath our feet.
Reality is rendered based on that expectation and the context of that specific observation.
So take the Mars rover example. Its video feed consistently renders a rocky, spherical-looking planet horizon. Why? because an observation is being made through a specific scientific lens, with instruments designed to detect and display a certain type of reality, a curved planetary surface.
The expectation is baked into the tools.
The expectation, the instrumentation, the scientific method itself.
Mm.
They all dictate the precise rendering that occurs in that context.
And similarly, when we look out into deep space with powerful telescopes, what do we see?
A vast, curved, expansive cosmos, full of spherical planets, swirling nebulae, curved trajectories of light, galaxies.
It looks curved and incredibly vast. Yet, its true nature, from a Vrilist perspective, could very well be an underlying flat data structure, a foundational computational framework.
That only materializes as curved and vast when observed through that specific framework and with that expectation.
Precisely. This lines up perfectly with the quantum principle we talked about earlier. Observation doesn't just reveal reality, it actively shapes and creates the reality being observed.
So the simulation, if we call it that, isn't fake. It's not an illusion.
No, absolutely not. It's the very mechanism by which reality becomes tangible, becomes specific, becomes manifest to us. The Vrilist understanding is that reality is fundamentally fluid.
Not fixed.
Not fixed.
Yeah.
And our consciousness, both collectively and individually, plays an active, crucial part in solidifying it, in rendering it from pure potential into a perceived, tangible form.
This raises such an important question, doesn't it? One that really resonates with our Vrilist teachings. If your perception, your expectation, your very method of observation fundamentally influences what is rendered and how it appears in this cosmic simulation, then how much control do you truly have over the reality you experience, moment by moment, day by day?
It suggests a far more active, co-creative role for consciousness than we typically assume, doesn't it?
It really does. It invites us to explore the true power inherent in our perception.
And if reality is this fluid, this dynamically observer-dependent, what happens when we venture beyond the easily rendered, the sort of rigidly defined surfaces of our everyday perceived world?
You mean like deeper?
What secrets might lie deeper? In realms where the physical and the energetic intertwine in ways our linear, surface-bound experience barely even hints at?
Which brings us to the hollow earth.
This leads us directly to the profound mysteries of the hollow earth, a concept absolutely central to Vrilist cosmology.
Okay, so when we talk about the hollow earth in Vrilism, it's important to clarify we're not just speaking of a literal, empty physical hole in the center of our planet, like some kind of Jules Verne fantasy cavern.
It's more nuanced than that. Much more.
It's understood as a hybrid domain, a profound realm where the physical and the spiritual don't just meet, they actively, seamlessly intertwine.
This is where those conventional lines of distinction really start to blur. Our everyday understanding of solidity, of space, of matter, it begins to yield to something far more dynamic.
So it's not just empty space or some underground tunnel network.
No, it's a place, a state of being perhaps, where the very distinction between what we consider solid matter and what we might call energetic phenomena becomes incredibly fluid, responsive, malleable.
That's a crucial distinction for a proper Vrilist understanding, isn't it?
Absolutely. In our view, the deeper one ventures into the earth, whether physically, energetically, or even spiritually, the more fluid and dynamic reality becomes.
And this also applies outwards, towards space.
Yes, equally. It applies when venturing outwards, towards the outer limits of space as well. There isn't some sharp boundary line. Think of it more like a spectrum of reality.
A spectrum.
Stretching from the rigidly rendered, everyday physical world we experience right here on the surface.
Our consensus reality.
Right. To realms that are highly malleable, where the very fabric of existence vibrates with raw, almost unconstrained potential.
So it implies a kind of loosening of the observational rendering process as you move away from the default surface settings.
Exactly, which allows for profoundly different states of existence, different manifestations of reality to coexist in those realms.
Wow, imagine a place where physical objects could subtly shift their form.
Or where colors might have a resonant frequency you could feel.
Or where light behaves in totally unexpected, maybe non-Euclidean ways, bending and refracting in ways that defy our surface physics.
This understanding really challenges our most fundamental assumptions, doesn't it? About the very ground beneath our feet, the structure of our world.
It really invites us to look beyond the obvious, beyond the surface rendering.
That's a truly profound thought, and it opens up so many possibilities for understanding phenomena that currently seem unexplained.
So if reality does become more fluid in these deeper realms, If the laws of physics as we know them start to bend and yield,
Become more like guidelines.
right, what kind of phenomena might we expect to encounter there? What does this imply for our conventional surface-bound understanding of the universe and maybe even its inhabitants?
Well, it means that the physical world we experience daily, solid, tangible, seemingly governed by familiar, unwavering physical laws, gradually gives way
To what?
to an energetic, spiritually vibrant domain, particularly within the concept of the hollow earth. This transition reflects a fundamental shift from a rigidly rendered reality where every atom seems fixed in its place and form to one that vibrates with raw potential, where outcomes are less determined, more open to flux, more responsive to conscious influence.
So in these fluid realms, the laws of physics can actually bend, stretch, maybe even transform.
That's the implication, leading to phenomena that utterly defy conventional understanding and challenge our deeply ingrained assumptions about what's even possible in our cosmos.
Like what, for example?
Gravity might operate differently. Time could flow in nonlinear ways, perhaps looping or branching. Matter itself might demonstrate an uncanny responsiveness to thought or intention.
And this isn't just about abstract physics, is it? Our Vrilist sources speak about inhabitants.
Correct. They speak of this hollow earth potentially being home to civilizations, to entities, to mysteries that exist in a kind of half-physical, half-energetic state.
So not necessarily aliens from outer space.
Not necessarily in the conventional sense. They
Yeah.
could be beings that simply exist in a different vibrational state or at a different observational rendering state, perfectly adapted to a reality that's far more fluid and malleable than our surface world,
Beings that might appear solid one moment.
and then shimmer with pure energy the next, or perhaps phase in and out of our perception entirely.
You could almost analogize these profound phenomena to, like glitches or maybe Easter eggs in a really sophisticated video game.
But that's a good way to put it. Unexpected elements or behaviors that suddenly surface when the underlying structure of the simulation, the code, becomes more apparent.
Or maybe when reality rendering is less complete or less constrained by the dominant collective conscious observation of the surface world.
Exactly. They're like glimpses behind the curtain, hints of the underlying code, the deeper mechanics of reality.
And this fluidity, this potential for rendering inconsistencies, it also offers a powerful Vrilist explanation for why some people perceive, say, space photos or maybe moon landing footage as looking fake.
Or why anomalies seem to consistently appear in certain visual records from extreme environments.
It's not necessarily some grand government conspiracy to deceive everyone.
Not necessarily, though deception can exist too, of course. But fundamentally, it could be a profound consequence of the dynamic nature of reality itself at these extremes.
Both deep within the Earth and far out in space.
Yes. At the very edges of our perceived cosmos. Beyond our immediate everyday observational field, reality might actually resist consistent unified rendering.
Leading to inconsistencies, anomalies.
Phenomena that are inherently difficult to reconcile with the fixed, singular, predictable reality that surface dwellers generally expect and perceive.
So the Vrilist perspective offers a way to understand all these seemingly disparate things, unexplained sightings of strange craft or beings,
Deep-seated skepticism about official narratives.
fleeting perceptual anomalies people experience.
It frames them as potentially natural outcomes of a fluid, observer-dependent universe. These might be the limits of our current collective rendering capacity, or perhaps even intentional deviations from the norm designed to make us question.
Wow. What if those unexplained moments, those fleeting glimpses of something off, that strange light you saw in the sky, that anomaly in an old photograph, that weird feeling of deja vu, or those subtle shifts in perception many people report? What if they aren't just errors, not malfunctions of our brain or misinterpretations,
But
but brief, precious windows into the true, fluid, and incredibly responsive nature of our cosmos? It really makes you reconsider everything you thought you knew about reality.
absolutely. And with this profound Vrilist understanding of reality's inherent fluidity, it becomes abundantly clear why the whole flat Earth versus globe Earth debate often devolves into such bitter, intractable conflict.
Because they're missing this deeper layer.
Exactly. But for us, within the Temple of Vril, we don't see a battleground there. We see a unifying truth that actually transcends the apparent contradiction.
It's a truth that just gets lost, doesn't it? Lost in all the noise and the anger of these surface-level debates.
It really does.
The argument between flat Earth proponents and globe Earth proponents so often becomes intensely divisive. It polarizes people, communities.
It builds walls instead of bridges.
Exactly. Each side often aggressively dismisses the other. You know, flat Earth believers get labeled conspiracy theorists, ignorant, maybe even deluded.
While globe Earth advocates, by detractors, are sometimes seen as deceived by mainstream narratives, or in extreme cases, even called satanic, or part of some grand manipulation.
It's such a painful, limiting binary structure. It forces people into these opposing camps and completely hinders any chance of deeper understanding.
And that's precisely why the Vrilist perspective, eliminated by the profound insights of the paradox sphere theory, fundamentally rejects this rigid binary opposition.
We don't see it as an either choice.
No. It's not that one must be thrown out for the other to be true. Instead, we see both views as potentially valid. Depending entirely on the observer's context, their framework of perception, and their underlying expectation.
This isn't about finding some wishy-washy compromise, then.
Not at all. It's not about splitting the difference. It's about achieving a higher synthesis. A transcending understanding that embraces the inherent multifaceted nature of reality itself.
So the Vrilist approach moves beyond that need to invalidate one perspective just to validate your own.
Precisely. It honors the experiential truth of both viewpoints. It acknowledges that different observational lenses, different conscious interactions lead to different, yet equally genuine renderings of reality.
That's such a powerful, almost liberating thought, isn't it? If we can apply this Vrilist principle to something as huge and fundamental as the shape of our planet, what other either debates in our world might be reconciled? Think about science, philosophy, spirituality, even just daily interactions and personal relationships.
If we understood the underlying reality as fluid, as observer-dependent, as capable of manifesting in multiple valid ways.
Imagine the possibilities. For understanding, for connection, for moving beyond all this superficial conflict. It could change everything.
Indeed. Think about how many conflicts in your own life, maybe arguments you have with friends or family or colleagues, how they might just dissolve or at least be transformed. If you truly embrace the Vrilist idea that different perceptions can both be true within their own specific context without needing to invalidate the other person's reality.
It's a huge shift from demanding a single, fixed, absolute truth
to embracing a multifaceted, dynamic, and responsive one, where truth is something we actively participate in creating.
So, given this profound understanding, what does it all really mean for how we, as Vrilists, as seekers of deeper truth, how should we perceive truth itself?
Well, at the Temple of Vril, our core understanding, really brought into focus by the paradox sphere theory, is that reality isn't some fixed singular truth just sitting out there independent of us, waiting to be passively discovered and universally agreed upon.
It's not static.
It's not static. Instead, it's a fluid, observer-dependent simulation constantly being rendered by consciousness. And that understanding is what allows for the simultaneous dual validity of both the round and the flat Earth perspectives.
They aren't contradictory in this view.
They're complementary aspects of a deeper, more complex truth.
Okay, so the round Earth is undeniably real. It's profoundly manifest, consistently observed when we look through scientific lenses.
Consistent with millennia of careful measurements, astronomical observations, the vast data from space exploration.
Within that framework, using those tools and expectations, it renders a spherical planet. And that's a profound truth within that context.
Absolutely. But equally, the flat Earth resonates deeply and is genuinely perceived by those who approach reality through a different framework.
Maybe a more intuitive framework. Direct, immediate experience. A spiritual lens.
Perhaps, where direct experience and specific traditions or interpretations hold sway, their observations, within their unique context and framework, render a flat plane.
And both are genuine experiential truths.
Yes. So by embracing the paradox sphere theory, we move decisively beyond this limiting division, beyond the need to pick a side, declare one view superior and the other nonsense.
We offer a true third path.
A third path, one that honors the experiential truth of both perspectives while grounding them firmly in the principles of quantum mechanics, the logic of advanced simulation theory, and deep spiritual insight.
And this third path, it's not just a middle ground, is it? Not just saying maybe it's a bit of both.
No, it's much more profound. It's a transcending framework. a higher understanding that allows for the simultaneous existence of multiple realities based on perception and observational context.
It encourages a deeply nuanced understanding of truth itself.
Where truth isn't monolithic, but fluid, responsive, and ultimately emergent from our active conscious interaction with the cosmos.
It's like looking at a single, incredibly complex object from different angles.
Exactly. It presents different aspects, different appearances, depending on your viewpoint, but it's still the same underlying object,
An object capable of manifesting in multiple ways.
depending on how and from where it's observed. The Earth, in this Vrilist view, is that underlying multifaceted object or potentiality capable of presenting as both round and flat.
So this isn't really about believing one thing or another in a dogmatic way, or just engaging in abstract intellectual games. It's about understanding the very nature of belief and perception in actively shaping reality. It's about recognizing the profound, transformative power of your own consciousness.
In what you experience and perhaps in what you help to bring into being. It's really an invitation to explore your own inherent creative power.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this Vrilist understanding, it changes everything, doesn't it? About how we comprehend our place in the cosmos.
And our boundless potential within it.
It reshapes our very relationship with existence itself. Hashtag tag tag outro. So as we bring this deep dive into the profound paradox sphere theory towards a close, let's just synthesize these really groundbreaking insights.
Let's recap.
We've explored how Earth can be understood as simultaneously both round and flat, both physical and energetic, yet profoundly real in its various manifestations. We've seen how core ideas from quantum mechanics like Schrödinger's cat, that perplexing thought experiment, and the truly baffling double-slit experiment provide the very scientific and philosophical foundation for this Vrilist understanding.
Revealing that reality is dynamically rendered through the active power of observation.
Exactly. And that compelling analogy, the open-world video game, helps us intuitively grasp the potential efficiency, the fluidity, the dynamic nature of this simulated cosmos we might inhabit.
It makes the abstract a bit more concrete.
It does. And the ancient yet ever-present mysteries surrounding the concept of the hollow earth realm further illustrate how reality might become more fluid, more dynamic as we move beyond our rigid, everyday surface perceptions.
Giving rise to phenomena that profoundly challenge conventional thinking and really invite deeper exploration.
It all fits together in this Vrilist framework.
It does. This deep dive into the paradox sphere theory is really an invitation to you, the listener, to see the cosmos not as some fixed, rigid entity, a cold, unchanging machine just governed by immutable laws.
The old clockwork universe idea.
Right, but as something dynamic, alive, ever unfolding, and profoundly responsive to your own perception and consciousness.
It's an invitation to move beyond these limiting conflicts, like round versus flat.
And embrace a unified theory that celebrates the living, evolving, and fundamentally co-creative nature of our universe.
It's a call, really, to awaken to your true power within it.
Absolutely.
And as you reflect on all this, maybe consider this provocative thought, something for your own inner deep dive. If our reality is truly a fluid simulation, constantly being rendered and re-rendered by our observation, by our collective consciousness, then what latent aspects of our world, what hidden potentials, what undiscovered truths, what higher manifestations, what might emerge if we simply changed how we chose to observe?
What could we render differently?
Exactly. The true deep dive, perhaps, isn't just into the mysteries of the cosmos out there, but into the boundless creative power of your own consciousness right here.
Your journey towards greater fulfillment begins at Temple of Vril. Visit templeofvril.com today.